Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So Donald Trump put up a second consecutive presidential primary victory last night. He went out there and he beat Nikki Haley by 11 percentage points, and this is just one step closer for him to the Republican nomination. And this win, even though it's an 11-point win, some of the polls had him winning by a wider margin. Turns out a lot of those polls did underestimate the amount of liberals, liberal independents who vote Democrat in general elections, crossing over to vote for Nikki Haley to try to one-up Donald Trump. But it failed, and he had a record-setting performance. Donald Trump went out there and he set the all-time record for raw votes for a Republican in a New Hampshire primary. And as a result, it's just one step towards his nomination, and it's going to happen because there's no path forward for Nikki Haley. If she was not going to win or at least get within 10 in New Hampshire, she's not going to get any momentum. That doesn't mean that she's not going to be delusional and she's going to stay in the race for as long as she possibly can, possibly just to weaken Donald Trump as much as possible and to make him exhaust more resources, and for her to go out there and exhaust more resources. It is true that certain mega donors have said they're not going to be backing her after her loss to Donald Trump, but this is everything that she banked on. She banked on New Hampshire. She banked on having all of these liberals voting for her in a blue state. But even then, it wasn't enough to stop Trump. 75% of registered Republicans did not vote for her. They voted for Donald Trump. And this is despite the liberal Republican governor, Chris Sununu, doing everything in his power to prop up Nikki Haley, him going on shows in the media every 5 minutes over the past month. It didn't exactly work. They had to get Chris Christie to drop out just to boost her chances, but it still was not enough. Even though they had all of this crossover support, they still couldn't do it. So what exactly is the path forward for Nikki Haley? Even in some of these states that have open primaries as well, they tend not to have as many crossover voters historically. South Carolina, for example, it's a much redder state than New Hampshire. Typically, voters don't cross over nearly as much there than they do in a place like New Hampshire in these primaries. So it seems like Nikki Haley doesn't really have much of a path forward at all. She's going to lose her home state. She's not even eligible for the Nevada caucus. She opted to do a meaningless primary that's not even binding there instead. And I wouldn't be surprised if none of these candidates ends up winning that as well. So either way, there's no path forward. She says, I'm not going anywhere except to my sweet South Carolina. Well, New Hampshire was her best chance to win a state, just like Iowa was the best shot for Ron DeSantis. He lost by 30. Haley lost by 11 in the state of New Hampshire. There is no path forward for her in terms of South Carolina and past South Carolina. It doesn't even matter if these states are open primaries or not. It doesn't exactly have the same political culture or demography as the state of New Hampshire does that would allow her to go out there and even come close to Donald Trump. So as a result, she doesn't have much of a chance, and you could look at the future states here. There's no delegates for the Nevada primary. Trump is going to get all 26 in the Nevada caucus. I presume he wins the Virgin Islands caucus as well. Then you have the South Carolina primary on the 24th of February, and it's very, very likely that Donald Trump is going to beat her there. He only needs to win it by one vote to win all 50 delegates, but he's probably going to beat her like 70-30 there. Then comes Michigan. If she stays in until Super Tuesday, she's going to get absolutely shellacked because the more, the losses stack up for her, less people are going to vote for her. Less people are going to be enthused to even cross over for her in some of these open primaries. So as a result, it doesn't exactly seem as if there's any path forward for Nikki Haley. And then you have Super Tuesday, where Donald Trump is going to absolutely wipe the floor with Nikki Haley if she's still in the race until then. So either way, an embarrassing performance. The old guard of the GOP is dead. They had to use dirty politics and have an open primary and do everything in their power to get Democrats to go out and vote for Nikki Haley, but they couldn't even crack 45%. She couldn't even get within single digits, and they had a higher turnout than expected from these liberal independents and these so-called moderate independents who almost exclusively voted for Joe Biden in 2020. Many of them voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. But either way, it's all out the window now. Trump is going to be the nominee. He cemented himself as the nominee even more than he already did. And yeah, a lot of the reason why it was closer than expected was because of the higher turnout from Democrats crossing over, because their primary doesn't mean anything to them, kind of how the Nevada primary doesn't mean anything to the Republicans. And you look at this, he still broke the all-time record for votes. And Nikki Haley got more votes than the entire Democrat primary combined. That's because Democrats were voting for her instead of voting for Biden, who, on the flip side, is not even going to receive 2/3 of his own party's support. Think about that. When all of these votes are tabulated, because yeah, some of the write-ins have not been processed, he's technically a write-in, but the people that are going to be voting in this primary, they already know that. But still, Dean Phillips is winning some towns. Dean Phillips is getting 20% of the vote, and you have a big share of the electorate who is not voting for Joe Biden, probably around, close to 40% when all of the write-ins are processed. Because yeah, some of these write-ins are not even for Joe Biden. They're for other candidates. Some people on the far left that are upset with Biden's handling of the conflict in the Middle East are writing ceasefire. Some people are writing in Cenk Uygur, who's not even eligible for the presidency because he's apparently running for president because he's almost as delusional as Nikki Haley is at this point. But either way, Biden is extraordinarily weak because he's an incumbent president. And Republicans were not crossing over to vote in the Democrat primary. And you could say he's a write-in, but still, I mean, there's a lot of people writing in other names. Everybody knew Biden would have been a write-in, but Dean Phillips is still getting like 20% of the vote. It's not a good look for Joe Biden. It's really not. And this is a better look for Trump on the Republican side, given who voted in this primary, given the fact that 53% of the voters in this primary were not even registered Republicans. That is down massively from 2016 even, where Donald Trump won the primary, but he only got 30-some% of the vote. Here, he cooked last night. He got close to 55% of the vote. And even though people want to say, well, technically he underperformed expectations, looking at who voted, Donald Trump actually did pretty well. And if you got the expected electorate, Donald Trump would have been cracking 60. He possibly would even be getting close to 65. And if this was a closed primary, he'd be getting in the mid to high 70s. And like I said, a lot of primaries nationwide are closed, or they happen to be in states where they're overwhelmingly Republican states, or you just don't have that many crossovers historically. And because Haley couldn't even beat Trump where they had the best chance to topple him, it's true that in some of these ensuing primaries, you're going to see less and less crossover voters. But either way, even if you have people crossing over in every single open primary at the same rate, Donald Trump is going to be the nominee. Nikki Haley is still delusional. There is no path forward for Nikki Haley. There's not. I don't believe she wins a single state at this point. I really don't. Trump is going to be the nominee. We got to unite behind Donald Trump because he's the only one that's going to be capable of knocking off Joe Biden this November. And that's the most important thing.
We'll teach Donald Trump a valuable lesson. Don't mess with the women in America unless you want to get the benefit.
So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.